Did you painfully watch someone's addiction destroy them? Everyone on campus knew that Lincoln had a white powder problem, but we never knew it could get this bad. You'd see Lincoln in the bathroom between classes doing little bumps off his phone screen. His eyes were always wide, and his leg was always bouncing under his desk. Most of us figured he was just another rich kid who partied too hard and couldn't handle college. I knew something was off though, because Lincoln wasn't like the other white powder heads on campus. He wasn't doing it to party or show off. He was doing it just to function. The thing about Lincoln was that he was brilliant. Not just smart, but like scary smart. He'd finish calculus tests in 20 minutes while the rest of us were still on problem 3. He worked 2 jobs on top of taking 18 credits every semester. One at the campus bookstore, and another tutoring kids in the library until midnight. He sent most of his money home to his family in Detroit. His little sister had some medical condition that needed expensive treatments. I only knew this because we were lab partners once, and he mentioned it when I asked why he never came to study groups. But the frat guys just saw him as entertainment. They called him Snowman behind his back and would make snorting sounds when he walked by. They'd invite him to parties as a joke, knowing he'd never show up. Lincoln always kept to himself and stayed focused on his work. He'd go straight from class to the library to his jobs, and then back to his dorm. The only breaks he took were those bathroom trips that everyone pretended not to notice. One Friday night, things went too far. There was this huge party at the richest frat on campus, and Lincoln wasn't there, obviously. He was probably studying or working like always. But around midnight, some of the frat brothers got bored and decided they wanted to spice things up. Nelson Stevens, who was the biggest douche in that whole house, came up with this idea. He knew Lincoln lived in the dorm next to theirs, and that his roommate had gone home for the weekend. They found Lincoln passed out at his desk with his economics textbook still open. The dude had probably been up for 2 days straight working on midterms. Nelson and 3 other guys literally picked him up while he was still half asleep and carried him to the party. Lincoln was so out of it, he didn't even fight back. They propped him up on a couch in the main room where everyone could see. "Look who decided to join us," Nelson announced to the whole party. People started gathering around laughing and pulling out their phones. Someone shoved a beer in Lincoln's hand, but he was still too groggy to understand what was happening. Then Nelson pulled out a little baggie and dumped a massive line on the coffee table. "Come on, Snowman, show us how it's done." Lincoln tried to get up, but they pushed him back down. The crowd was chanting now. "Do it, do it, do it." Nelson grabbed Lincoln by the back of the neck and shoved his face toward the table. I was standing in the doorway watching this whole thing go down and feeling sick to my stomach. Lincoln finally seemed to wake up and realize where he was. He tried to push Nelson off, but Nelson was twice his size. "I said show us how it's done," Nelson yelled. That's when Lincoln did something nobody expected. He stopped fighting and just stared at the line on the table. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was like watching an alcoholic stare at a bottle of whiskey. He needed it. Even in that horrible situation with everyone laughing at him, he still needed it, and that made it even worse somehow. The crowd got quiet for a second, like they could feel how messed up this was getting. But Nelson didn't care. He kept pushing until Lincoln finally gave in and did the line. Then another. Then another. The crowd went wild again. They made him do shots. They made him dance. They made him tell stories about why he started using. Lincoln was so high he couldn't even form proper sentences. He was sweating through his shirt, and his pupils were like dinner plates. People were live streaming the whole thing. Then Lincoln hit the floor. Not like falling down drunk, but like his whole body just shut off. He was shaking violently, and foam was coming out of his mouth. The music stopped. Someone screamed. Most people just stood there filming while Lincoln's body convulsed on the dirty frat house floor. This girl Marisol, who always carried Narcan because her brother overdosed, pushed through the crowd. She sprayed it up his nose while someone called 911. Those few minutes felt like hours. Lincoln's lips were turning blue and his seizure wouldn't stop. But somehow the Narcan worked just in time. He started breathing normally right as the ambulance pulled up. The truth came out at the hospital. Lincoln had severe PTSD from watching his dad die in a car accident when he was 12. He'd been self-medicating because therapy cost hundreds of dollars a session, and white powder cost $20 a bump. It was the only way he could focus enough to maintain his grades and keep his scholarships. Without those scholarships, his sister wouldn't get her treatments. Lincoln dropped out the next week. Last I heard, he was working at Five Below making minimum wage. Someone saw him there with a full beard looking like a completely different person. He doesn't talk to anyone and keeps his head down. The frat got suspended for a semester, but Nelson still graduated with honors.